6 games into what was billed as the Fever's long-awaited revival, the dream hit a pothole. One by one, the backcourt stars who turned Indiana into the WNBA's hottest ticket, Caitlin Clark, Sydney Colson, Sophie Cunningham, limped to the bench, leaving sellout crowds staring at empty seats and a 2-4 record. For a franchise drowning in hype and national TV slots, the timing couldn't be worse. Yet before fans could finish asking, now what? The front office played a surprise card. Aari McDonald, the Pac-12 scoring queen once drafted to save Atlanta, is flying in under the hardship exception. Suddenly, the most talked about rookie class in years shares the spotlight with a defensive spark plug who has everything to prove and nothing to lose. Is this the twist that salvages Indiana's season, or the final roll of the dice before the bottom drops out? Stick around, because the answer could redraw the playoff map faster than you can say quad strain. Before a single game tipped off, the Indiana Fever were already the center of the basketball universe. Caitlin Clark's arrival didn't just give the franchise a fresh start, it lit a wildfire. Ticket sales exploded, merch sold out within hours, and every Fever game turned into a national event. The team went from relative obscurity to primetime darlings overnight, with ESPN and ABC clamoring for broadcast rights, and fans camping outside arenas just for a glimpse. But behind the cameras and headlines, reality was a little messier. This was still a young roster with growing pains, and a grueling schedule didn't help. 5 games in 9 days meant little rest and 0 room for error. Clark was logging heavy minutes out of the gate, and other starters were pushed to their limits just trying to keep up. Still, the pressure never let up. The Fever weren't just expected to compete, they were expected to win, and win now. Every possession was dissected online. Every mistake went viral. And while the crowds kept cheering, you could feel the tension mounting. Then came the injuries, and suddenly the fairy tale started to crack. But that was only the beginning. It started as a subtle limp, barely noticeable during warm-ups, but by the end of the Fever's May 26th matchup, fans were holding their breath. Caitlin Clark, the face of Indiana's franchise and arguably the entire league, was clutching her left leg. What followed was the kind of silence that only happens when thousands of people realize the moment they've been dreading might already be here. Team officials were quick to downplay the situation. A mild quad strain, they said. Day to day, nothing too serious, but for a player who's carried the spotlight non-stop since her final NCAA run, any sign of wear and tear raised eyebrows. Rumors swirled fast. Was Clark being overused? Critics pointed to the Fever's packed schedule and her league-leading minutes among rookies. Others speculated that the endless wave of media obligations, from press conferences to brand deals, left little time for recovery. Online chatter took it even further, accusing the league of squeezing every ounce of revenue from its biggest star, regardless of the long-term cost. Fans noticed too. Social media lit up with concern and frustration. Why is she still playing so much? She looks tired. Protect her now, or lose her for the season. The worry wasn't just about this one injury. It was about what it symbolized. The fear that the Fever were burning out their franchise player before she ever got the chance to settle in. And just when things seemed like they couldn't get worse, they did. Caitlin Clark's injury may have grabbed headlines, but it wasn't the only blow. Just days later, the Fever's already fragile backcourt took another hit. Veteran guard Sydney Colson, known as much for her locker room leadership as her on-court hustle, went down with what appeared to be a lower leg injury during a fast break. She limped off the court, visibly frustrated, and didn't return. Team officials listed her as day-to-day, but the damage was done. The rotation was down another crucial piece. Then, as if scripted by some cruel twist of fate, it happened again. Late in the same game, Sophie Cunningham, a gritty, floor-spacing guard who'd been finding her rhythm, rolled her ankle on a contested rebound. She went down hard, and the panic in her expression said it all. While an MRI later showed no major damage, the sprain was enough to sideline her indefinitely. Suddenly, the Fever weren't just missing their star, they were missing half their guard lineup. The dominoes fell fast. Indiana was down to just 9 active players, dangerously close to the league's minimum. The coaching staff scrambled to plug the holes, but it was clear. Depth was no longer a luxury, it was an emergency. Message boards lit up with concern. Are we cursed? Fans asked. Is this a rebuild or a breakdown? Between Clark's strain, Colson's limp, and Cunningham's sprain, the narrative flipped overnight. What started as a promising run now looked like survival mode. But the front office wasn't done, because buried deep in the WNBA rulebook, there was one move left to make, an exception rarely used, but exactly what the Fever needed. Most fans had never heard of the WNBA's hardship exception before this week, but for the Fever, it quickly became their last lifeline. With multiple players sidelined and fewer than 10 healthy bodies available, Indiana triggered a little-known rule designed for exactly this kind of crisis. Here's how it works. When a team falls below the minimum number of available players due to injury, they can temporarily sign an extra player, even if they're over the salary cap. It's a rare move, and for good reason. These hardship contracts are short-term, often non-guaranteed, and come with no promise of stability. But they can be a lifeline for both the team and the player signing on. Critics of the rule aren't shy. Some call it a band-aid solution in a league that still limits roster sizes and offers fewer guaranteed contracts than its male counterpart. Others argue it puts injured players in limbo, unable to play, while someone else takes their spot under a temporary deal. Even within player circles, there's quiet tension. Hardship signings help teams stay afloat, but they also shine a spotlight on the WNBA's lingering depth and resource issues. Still, for a team like Indiana, with 3 guards suddenly out and the season slipping away, the hardship exception wasn't just a loophole, it was a necessity. And with one quick move, they used it to bring in a familiar face, a spark plug, a former top 3 pick who'd been waiting for a second chance. Her name, Aari McDonald. And she's not here to play backup. If you watched women's college hoops anytime between 2018 and 2021, the name Aari McDonald still rings like a buzzer beater. At Arizona, she piled up 3 straight Pac-12 scoring crowns, racked up back-to-back All-American nods, and carried the Wildcats to a title game thriller almost single-handedly. University of Arizona Athletics. That resume made her the number 1. 3rd pick in the 2021 draft, an electric 5'6" blur built for coast-to-coast drives and full-court pressure. Her pro story, however, has never quite matched the collegiate hype. After finishing second in Rookie of the Year voting with Atlanta, McDonald shifted to Los Angeles, where flashes of brilliance, 23-point eruptions, double-double nights were offset by limited minutes behind veteran guards. Even so, last season with the Sparks, she quietly averaged 8.7 points, 3.7 assists, and a steal per game, while guarding the league's quickest scorers at the point of attack. Sparks.WNBA.com. Now the hardship door swings open, and McDonald sprints through it wearing fever red. For Indiana, the appeal is obvious. She brings blistering speed in transition, on-ball defense that hounds opposing creators, and a fearless crunch-time mindset forged in March Madness chaos. For Aari, it's a second-chance spotlight, one where the cameras that once followed Clark can just as easily catch a breakout crossover of her own. Of course, questions linger, her outside shot wavers, and skeptics wonder how she'll mesh with Kelsey Mitchell once Clark is healthy. But that debate belongs to tomorrow. Tonight, the Pac-12's former scoring queen walks back onto a national stage, holding the keys to a bruised roster that still believes its story ends in the playoffs. And if McDonald really is the spark plug everyone remembers, the next chapter might shock more than just Fever fans. Aari McDonald's arrival solves the numbers problem, but does it fix the basketball problem? On paper, she checks off several urgent boxes. First, pace. The Fever's offense has crawled since Clark went down, ranking dead last in transition buckets over the last 3 games. McDonald is a one-woman fast break. Give her the ball, and she'll beat most defenders to the rim before the shot clock even shows 20. Her speed forces defenses to retreat early, creating driving lanes that Kelsey Mitchell hasn't seen since opening night. Then there's perimeter pressure. Indiana's guards have watched opposing playmakers carve them up at the point of attack, shooting 48% on drives. McDonald built her college legend by sliding over every screen and turning ball handlers sideways. That on-ball tenacity could buy Indiana the extra possessions it's been giving away. But every fix comes with fine print. The biggest question mark is her range. McDonald's career three-point clip hovers around 31%. Streaky enough that defenders often go under screens. Without Clark stretching the floor, the Fever can't afford more paint clogging. Head coach Christy Sides will likely stagger minutes, so McDonald shares the court with at least 2 knockdown shooters. But rotations are thin, and opponents know it. Size is the other concern. At 5'6", she fights for every passing window, and taller guards can shoot over closeouts. In clutch minutes, that can be exploited, especially when matchups switch. Expect Indiana to counter by hiding her on weaker wings and banking on her quick hands to generate steals before a mismatch turns into a post-up. The fit next to Clark is the great unknown. Both love the ball in their hands. Clark to thread cross-court lasers, McDonald to slash and collapse defenses. If they blend, Indiana suddenly owns the league's fastest dual-engine backcourt. If they clash, possessions could bog down into a your turn, my turn tug-of-war. For now, though, the calculus is simple. The Fever needs someone who can push tempo, pick up 94 feet, and keep the ship afloat until their superstar returns. McDonald can do all 3. Whether that patch holds against real-time pressure, we'll find out in a matter of hours, because the Mystics are already warming up. Aari McDonald's signing may look like a quick injury fix, but zoom out and it reveals much more about where the Fever and the WNBA as a whole stand right now. Indiana didn't just need another guard, they needed a stabilizer for a roster teetering under the weight of skyrocketing expectations, national attention, and mounting physical strain. And they're not alone. The WNBA's 2024 season is already testing the limits of its infrastructure. With more games, tighter schedules, and unprecedented media pressure, teams are being asked to perform under conditions they haven't faced before. For rising franchises like the Fever, where every move is under a microscope, that pressure isn't theoretical, it's physical. Real injuries, real burnout, real consequences. And this hardship deal, it's a symptom of that system. It shows how fragile things can get when rosters are limited to just 11 or 12 players, and how razor-thin the line is between contender and chaos. At the same time, it also shows something else: adaptability. The Fever didn't wait for the perfect moment. They pivoted fast. McDonald's arrival reflects a front office willing to take a chance, to gamble on talent over hesitation. In a league where many capable players are left unsigned due to limited spots, her signing is a reminder that depth isn't about luxury, it's about survival. For McDonald, it's more than just a job. It's a shot at rewriting her narrative on a team that needs her just as much as she needs them. And for the WNBA, it's a small but powerful case study in why investment, expansion, and long-term vision matter. Because if this many injuries can derail a top franchise 6 games in, what happens when the rest of the league hits its wall? But the Fever aren't thinking about that yet, because all eyes are now on Tuesday night. As the Indiana Fever prepare to face the Washington Mystics on Tuesday, the stakes feel bigger than just a regular season matchup. This isn't just about snapping a losing streak, it's a proving ground. For Aari McDonald, it's a shot to remind the league she's still a fourth. For the Fever, it's a test of resilience, chemistry, and how quickly a team can adapt when their blueprint gets shredded. Expectations are sky high, but they've also shifted. With Clark, Colson, and Cunningham sidelined, fans aren't expecting perfection. They're watching for grit. Can McDonald take control of the offense without forcing it? Can Kelsey Mitchell finally find room to operate again? Can this team rediscover its defensive bite and push back against the slide? The Mystics, also battling injuries and inconsistency, aren't the powerhouse they once were, but they're scrappy, experienced, and desperate for momentum. If Indiana comes out flat, another L could bury them deeper into early season irrelevance. But if McDonald delivers a spark, if she feeds off the crowd, pushes the tempo, and ignites the offense, that could flip the entire narrative overnight. This is where the season either stabilizes or spirals. One performance won't save everything, but it could mark a turning point. Not just for Indiana's record, but for how this team responds to adversity, how it evolves when the original plan falls apart, and how the league views the depth of its talent pool. Tuesday night won't have the hype of Clark's debut, but for fans paying attention, it might just say more about what this Fever team is really made of. And after that, the schedule doesn't get easier, but if this new-look roster shows fight, heart, and urgency, then this story isn't over. It's just getting started.